In the southeast of Italy, in a region called Apulia, a Bronze Age tribe left a series of peculiar limestone stellae deserving some closer attention. They are often referred to as early Roman items, but that is not quite the case. They were made by the Daunii, one of three known Iapygian tribes, together with the Messapi and the Peuceti. All Iapygians spoke the same language, so-called Messapian language, which has a clear linguistic connection to Indo-European and some of the Greek dialects. Despite the common name given to them, these three groups were culturally distinct from each other. I will be only looking at the Daunii for now. Ancient authors have recorded three possible origins of these people: Arcadia, Crete and Illyria, the latter being the one confirmed by archaeological evidence, indicating an intercultural contact with the Balkans. These Iapygian tribes probably crossed the Adriatic Sea to relocate in Italy during the beginning of the first millennium BC. Some 500 years later, they were assimilated into the Roman territory. Excuse me. Which is probably the reason why they are often called some of the earliest Italic people on the peninsula, temporary with the Etruscans, who lived mainly on the west coast of Italy. The stellae have first been collected during the 60s and 70s, and exact locations and circumstances are lost today. There is very little known about these people in general, and some researchers claim a link to the mystery cult of Arcadia. I don't know about these mystery cults, but a lot of these sailors seem to have lost their heads somehow. The round symbols are said to be pendants, but also cardiophylaxes are shown. These metal pieces made part of the protection of warriors, usually hung over the breast to protect the heart. This is a bronze example from central Italy. So I want to share this paper here, written by Camilla Norman for the European Journal of Archaeology in 2011, called "The Tribal Tattooing of the Daunian Woman." It proposes to divide the stellae into female and male according to the displayed decorations. A small percent of them bears arms, the others seem to display weaving scenes, and they also seem to have these embroidered gloves. Although the author suggests something else here. The arms of these so-called female stellae are decorated with geometrical patterns, and like I said, it has long been assumed they represented gloves. But there are no historical references to the habit of wearing gloves as a fashionable thing. They were only worn for convenience during work and against the cold. There is actually no evidence at all that the women of the Daunii wore gloves. No real ones or any depictions have been found on any of the typical redware pottery of Apulia. Instead, she says that the fashionable decorations probably represent tribal tattoos, an idea that until recently has not truly been explored, but for which the author sums up good evidence. The practice of tattooing is ancient, proven by various mummies recovered in Asia, like the Pasiric mummies and those found in Xinjiang. Also, Ötzi, found in the Alps, had body decorations. I think it is obvious this was a global practice among our ancestors. Neolithic figurines found in Central Europe and the Near East display certain decorations, and incisions that suggest the habit of body decoration. Herodotus, in speaking of the Thracians, who are neighbors to the Illyrians, remarks, "To be tattooed is a sign of noble birth among them, while to bear no such marks is for the baser sort." This is in contrast with the habits of Greeks and later Romans, who used it to mark slaves. Both him and Strabo mention this custom among the Daunii. Pliny attributes it to the Dacians and Sarmatians, Virgil to the Agatyrsoi or Tirsagetae, and Julius Caesar notices it among Picts. And the list of historical mentions of this habit goes on and on. Tattoo needles also have been found in Illyrian graves. From the Arctic to Taiwan, Japan to Iraq, Bosnia to Papua New Guinea, North Africa to South America, studies show that it is more often than not a female tradition in which the ritual of tattooing is applied by women on women, marking sexual maturity, lineage or tribal affiliation, protection, or in case of sympathetic magic. Especially the forearms are tattooed among tribes from all over the world through history. The tradition of tattooing the forearms, hands, and even the stern among women in the Balkan prior to the First World War has been documented. And then especially among women of Croatian descent. The symbolism of the ornaments represents circle, which is the sun, the crescent is of course the moon, fences, small pine twigs, the fir tree, ears of corn, bracelets. These motifs suggest that the custom dates back to pre-Christian times, where the Orthodox Christians, so I read, have aversion to this practice. Apparently it is a practice of mainly the Catholic women in the Balkan. Since the 9th century, a re-Christianization of Bosnia and Albania replaced a nature religion still based on the heavenly bodies. This replacement was final then. Legend goes that they were tattooed with crosses to ensure a Christian burial, and maybe for most even to avoid the primae noctis, or being forced into marriage after being taken into slavery by Ottomans or Jews during the 13th and 14th century. The tradition of tattooing has remained until last century among the Croatian Bosnian women, Catholic women. The author of the paper notes that the art of tattooing among tribal women indicates specific happenings in their lives, like the coming and going of fertility. The tattoo signifying the transition from a girl into woman would have been made within a religious setting or a sequence of settings. The returning symbols like the swastika, the starbursts or dots on the elbows are reflections of this before mentioned religious background, as they too in all probability represent sun, moon and stars. These markings could symbolize the responsibility that comes with the power of reproduction, a mirroring of the workings of nature. I personally don't like the division between the stellae according to gender, for the simple reason that I suspect that the Iapygian tribes descended from civilizations where the gender role was defined slightly different in a different way, and where women warriors were not too exceptional. Also, I think the actual swastika and the other symbols on the elbows may be representations of a certain specific tribal affiliation. I will go into that a little bit later. The swastika as ornaments surrounding the arms, together with the meander patterns and lozenges, may represent embroidery like we can see here. This could indeed be a male being served by a woman, although some propose this could represent a specific ritual in which opium is served by a religious person. Leaving this aside, some of the surrounding ornamentals did remind me of the traditional Central and East European embroideries, also often containing symbols like the swastika, and undoubtedly of a very ancient origin. Also more on that later. Apparently there were scholars who linked these people to one of Daedalus' sons called Iapix. Yes, that would make Iapix the brother of Icarus, the boy who flew too close to the sun. His father, this Daedalus, turns out to be a very intriguing figure, of whom Pliny calls him the inventor of carpentry, skilled in metallurgy and architecture. He is said to be the one who designed the Minoan labyrinth, and that is why, at least I think, that is the reason why Iapygians were originally from Crete, according to some researchers. I don't know, but I have to admit I rather prefer the idea that they were indeed descendants of Indo-Europeans. The Thracian women depicted on the Apulian redware vases certainly show similar body decorations. The decorations on the hands can be seen here, on Daunian pottery as well. These last pots also came up in my search, so I added them here for you. That's it for now. I decided I'd throw my method of working overboard. Too often I find stuff of which I think it is interesting enough to share with you, but then it tends to be added to a waiting pile and I risk to forget about them again. I think I can still follow the timeline grosso modo while making it all a bit more interesting for me as well. Anyways, thank you very much for watching as always. See you in the comment section. Bye bye.